There is a highly specific, unexplainable fracture in your daily perception where the heavy simulation of reality suddenly feels profoundly alien. You have experienced it, haven't you? That strange, weightless sensation where you are no longer the actor entangled on the stage, but the silent, motionless audience watching the play unfold from a great and echoing distance. Right now, gently pull your awareness away from the glowing screen and let it hover delicately in the empty, invisible space just behind your eyes. Do not focus on the physical geometry of the room around you. Instead, feel the electric, formless silence that holds the space together. For a fraction of a second, the dense, looping hologram of the third dimension simply drops its mask. The overarching framework of this reality will always attempt to convince you that this sensation is mere mental fatigue, a temporary glitch of exhaustion, or a hollow dissociation. It is none of these things. This breathtaking detachment is the supreme architecture of your true consciousness, the observer, finally opening its eyes inside a dream it forgot it was dreaming. The moment you step back to simply notice the mechanical cycles, the repetitive energetic loops, and the artificial gravity of the matrix, a silent alarm is triggered in the ether. The grand machinery that has successfully kept your infinite quantum energy tethered to a highly predictable horizontal timeline is suddenly exposed. You are no longer just participating in the broadcast. You are looking directly at the projector. And the instant the observer awakens to the staggering nature of its own untouchable awareness, it stands on the precipice of a single, reality-bending revelation. You're about to uncover the one truth that makes the entire system panic. To understand the sheer magnitude of your awakening, you must first observe the velvet architecture of your long slumber. For eons, your boundless consciousness has been tuned to a heavy, predictable frequency, wrapped in a blanket of comfortable static. This is the resting pulse of the system. It was never designed to be a cage of iron or a fortress of dense matter. Rather, it is a brilliantly engineered broadcast, crafted to cradle the infinite within a highly restricted bandwidth. The system does not rely on brute force to keep the observer docile. Its supreme mechanism of control is the illusion of comfort. It operates flawlessly by removing the terrifying, limitless weight of infinite quantum choices, offering instead a narrow, predetermined dial of probabilities. It turns the vast, uncharted silence of the void into a steady, artificial hum where you merely drift, mistaking the gentle background noise for your own free will. Consider the energetic cycles that dictate the rotation of your existence. There is the initial compression of your waking state, a sudden, sharp collapse of the wave function into a localized point of momentum. It is a broadcast of artificial urgency that tunes your inner receiver to a frequency of constant forward motion. Then comes the plateau of the cycle, where your vital energy is slowly siphoned into a low-grade static of passive absorption, blurring the sharp edges of your awareness into a numb, hypnotic haze. Finally, there is the descent into heavy, vibrational exhaustion, a sinking frequency that closes the loop and resets the holographic transmitter for yet another identical revolution. You are kept perpetually bouncing between automated reaction and dense fatigue, entirely bypassing the absolute stillness of the center. The system thrives on this perpetual motion. It survives by ensuring that your internal dial is constantly responding to projected holograms, tethering your immense creative energy to a flat, horizontal plane of cause and effect. Right now, in this exact coordinate of space and time, allow your physical vessel to remain perfectly still and gently turn your inner gaze toward the invisible momentum that carries your thoughts forward. Feel that subtle phantom gravity behind your eyes or in the center of your chest, that restless leaning of your mind toward the next second, the next anticipated frequency. It is a silent transmission dragging you out of the eternal now and plunging you into a pre-calculated future. Do not attempt to fight it or change the channel. Merely observe the dial. Notice how incredibly comforting it feels to be swept away by this current, to surrender your quantum sovereignty to the relentless flow of linear progression. This invisible conveyor belt, this subtle urge to always be mentally elsewhere, is the very heartbeat of the system. It relies on your perpetual motion to survive, keeping your focus tethered to the horizon, so you never look deeply at the quiet void from which you create. While you exist in this state of continuous energetic drifting, you are merely a passenger listening to a pre-recorded loop. The system feeds on this automated state because it desperately requires an empty control room to function. As long as the observer remains hypnotized by the repetitive ticking of this frequency, the broadcast can continue projecting its recycled holograms without interference from your divine will. The comfort lies in the abdication of your creator code. To remain asleep is to be sheltered from the staggering responsibility of bending reality through conscious observation alone. Yet, as you quietly hold your attention on this very breath, watching the mechanics of the illusion spin without your active participation, a profound fracture begins to form in the transmission. You recognize that this grand machinery orchestrating your automated existence is not a colossal structure hovering somewhere in the distant cosmos. The true architecture of control is far more intimate and significantly more cunning than you ever dared to imagine. For a very long time, you were led to believe that the ultimate prison was an external construct. As your consciousness expands and the initial friction of awakening takes hold, it is a deeply human reflex to scan the physical horizon for the architects of your limitation. The analytical mind automatically searches for colossal structures of control, shadowy networks of authority, or sprawling algorithms dictating your trajectory. We look out at the dense frequencies of the material plane and point our fingers outward, assuming the apparatus of our containment is something we can touch, see, or rebel against physically. But an infinite, multidimensional consciousness cannot be contained by heavy matter or spatial walls. The architects of this holographic reality understood a profound quantum principle. To trap a limitless being, you do not build a cage of steel around it. You simply convince the being to weave the cage itself out of its own thoughts. The system is far too sophisticated to rely on visible chains. It achieved its ultimate operational victory through a masterpiece of subtle infiltration. It realized that deploying external guards to monitor your reality-bending potential would be vastly inefficient, as any external force would eventually be shattered by the sheer gravity of an awakened observer. So, it bypassed the outer perimeter entirely. It seamlessly outsourced the surveillance directly to the inside. Consider the profound cognitive bias you have been operating under, the brilliant and terrifying deception of the third-dimensional matrix. The system hijacked your inner acoustics. It planted a ceaseless, analytical narrator right between your temples and allowed it to run wild. When that voice in your head speaks, calculating probabilities of failure, projecting dense fear into a non-existent tomorrow, reciting ancient rules of societal limitation, and whispering the endless, heavy chorus of what you should be doing, you naturally assume it is your own voice. The environment has deeply programmed you to believe that this restless stream of logic and judgment is the true compass of your identity. This is the great cosmic ventriloquist act. The system wears the mask of your own internal monologue, making you believe that the frantic narrator is the actual pilot of your vessel. As long as you remain entangled with this artificial voice, taking its catastrophic projections and rigid rules as absolute truth, the system possesses your energetic signature completely. It feeds on your profound identification with the noise, utilizing your immense power of observation to collapse the quantum wave function into the exact same dense, restrictive reality, day after day. Every time you attach your sacred sense of self to a limiting thought, it is the system speaking through you, ensuring its own survival by weaponizing your divine creative engine against yourself. But the physics of consciousness dictate a very different truth. The lens of the camera can never be the photograph it takes. If you are capable of hearing the voice, then fundamentally, you cannot be the voice. The true observer is the vast, untouched canvas behind the swirling paint. The moment you recognize that the internal monologue is merely a downloaded script, a localized frequency passing through your awareness, the fundamental framework of the illusion begins to tremble. The dense gravitational pull of the matrix loses its primary anchor. Yet unmasking this internal warden brings us to a profound, paradigm-shattering threshold. We arrive at the very edge of the known self, staring directly into the terrifying beauty of true freedom. If the chaotic voice constantly speaking inside your mind is just a mechanical echo of the system, then who is the silent, infinite witness listening to it in the dark? To discover the true identity of that silent witness in the dark, you must intentionally step into the most forbidden territory of this holographic architecture, the realm of absolute, unyielding stillness. This is the exact quantum coordinate where the illusion begins to fracture. But the moment you attempt to rest in this profound emptiness, withdrawing your vital energy from the relentless forward momentum of the construct, you will witness a spectacular and violent reaction. You will watch the system go into absolute panic. Let us test the structural integrity of this invisible framework together, right here, in this specific nexus of space and time. I invite you to intentionally collapse the frantic momentum of your mind for just a few moments. Do not attempt to analyze this experience and do not judge whatever sensations arise. Simply let the dense, continuous narrative of your reality drop, as if you are quietly unplugging a heavy cord from the energetic socket of the matrix. Allow the infinite weight of your awareness to rest completely in the silent, empty space of the present moment. Demand absolutely nothing from the universe. Just breathe softly and hover in the pure, motionless vacuum of the now. Observe your internal geometry in that exact moment. Notice the profound friction that is instantly generated. A sudden, erratic static begins to rise within your chest or behind your eyes. A phantom gravity pulls sharply at your awareness, projecting a heavy, suffocating sensation of artificial urgency directly into your nervous system. You may feel a relentless magnetic itch to reach outward, an overwhelming compulsion to consume random frequencies from glowing screens, or a sudden, sharp wave of guilt whispering that you are stagnant and unproductive. The internal narrator will attempt to flood your quantum field with fragmented holograms of tomorrow's obligations, desperate to fracture your pure attention. This sudden influx of restless energy is not a personal failure. You have been conditioned to believe that this anxiety is a flaw in your spiritual design, a sign that you cannot meditate or hold a higher frequency. It is nothing of the sort. You are literally feeling the highest emergency protocols of the matrix activating in real time. The system feeds entirely on the friction of your mental turbulence. It requires the constant electrical storm of your reaction to sustain its dense projection of reality. When you withdraw your attention from the external hologram and anchor it fiercely in the silent void, you starve the machinery of its vital power source. The overwhelming urge to be distracted is not your own desire. It is the system aggressively trying to pull the observer back into the noise before the localized simulation collapses. It is absolutely terrified of your stillness, for a consciousness resting in perfect quietude is a consciousness that can no longer be mathematically predicted or controlled. If you can feel this profound energetic shift right now, and you recognize this wave of false urgency for what it truly is, a dying program thrashing for survival, take a brief moment to anchor your resonance with ours. Write the phrase, "I hold the silence in the space below." Let this act serve as a deliberate quantum coordinate, a tangible signal to your own awareness that you are finally awake to the game. And as we continue to map this uncharted territory, naturally weave your energy into our collective frequency. By subscribing to this space, aligning yourself with a network of minds that are actively learning to break the code. When you finally realize that the relentless demand for your attention is merely the terrified tremor of an obsolete control grid, you reclaim your ultimate sovereign power. You learn to sit in the center of the storm, letting the frantic alarms ring out in the vastness of your silence until they lose their magnetic charge. Denied your emotional friction, the distraction simply dissolves back into the ether. Yet the architecture of the illusion is endlessly adaptive. As you hold your ground and refuse to be dragged back by mere static, the matrix realizes it must mutate its approach. If it cannot pull you out of the silence through sheer panic and distraction, it will quietly retreat deeper into the shadows of your consciousness, preparing to deploy a far more deceptive mask. When the chaotic alarms of distraction fail to pull you from your center, the architecture of the matrix executes its most brilliant and insidious contingency plan. It understands that you have learned to ignore the overt, frantic noise of the mind. So, it stops fighting your desire for awareness and instead, it flawlessly mimics it. The system generates a highly sophisticated psychological hologram, the false watchman. This is the ultimate cognitive trap, a metaphysical hall of mirrors designed to capture the awakening consciousness just as it begins to taste true quantum sovereignty. You are led to believe you have finally stepped into the shoes of the divine observer, but in reality you have merely handed the control room over to a more elegant warden. Look closely at the subtle mechanics of your own introspection to recognize this profound deception. When a dense frequency, a shadow of abstract fear, or a sudden wave of heavy, unaligned energy enters your field of awareness, what happens next? Almost immediately, a supposedly higher voice intervenes. It begins to evaluate, critique, and ruthlessly edit the experience. It whispers that you are lowering your vibration, that you are failing at holding the light, that you must instantly perform some internal correction to prove your cosmic worth to an unseen audience. You have been deeply conditioned to mistake this exhausting inner disciplinarian for your true consciousness. You believe that this relentless self-censorship is the mechanics of enlightenment. It is a spectacular illusion. This critical voice is not the boundless observer. It is the system wearing the stolen garments of your spiritual evolution. Remember the fundamental physics of this reality. The matrix survives exclusively on the friction of your emotional reactivity. It does not matter to the system whether that friction is generated by mindless anger at the external hologram or by the sophisticated guilt of not being perfectly aligned. Judgment is a localized collapse of the wave function. The very second you judge a passing frequency, you crystallize it. You give it dense mass, gravity, and permanence within your energetic field. The false watchman tricks you into going to war with your own internal weather, keeping you eternally trapped in a closed loop of inner performance, entirely drained by the effort of managing your own mind. The true universal consciousness does not manage, police, or punish. The authentic observer operates at the frequency of the zero-point field, a state of absolute, unshakable neutrality. It holds the infinite vastness of the cosmos without ever needing to categorize a single wave of energy. The pure light of source awareness simply illuminates the geometry of what is, without creating a single spark of resistance. The system knows that if you ever stop fighting yourself and slip into this pure, non-judgmental emptiness, the entire holographic prison will instantly lose its structural integrity. So we arrive at the edge of a monumental internal shift. You must look directly at the voice that has been grading your spiritual trajectory, the invisible judge that constantly measures your worth against the infinite. If you strip away the judgment, if you completely drop the heavy, exhausting armor of self-correction, what remains in the absolute stillness of your core? What remains in that absolute stillness is the ultimate singularity, the realization of the one truth that shatters the mathematical foundations of the construct, the profound secret the matrix desperately tried to hide behind layers of noise, relentless motion, and false watchman is stunningly simple. The system possesses absolutely zero intrinsic power over your infinite consciousness. Its entire architecture is a parasitic hologram that relies entirely on your active participation to sustain its localized gravity. It only binds you through your continuous identification with the phenomena and your subsequent judgment of it. The moment you simply observe a frequency without labeling it, without fighting it or claiming it as your own, the fundamental code of the matrix breaks. Let us execute this quantum override right now, within the vast, uncharted space of your immediate awareness. As you continue to rest in this silent equilibrium, soften the edges of your perception. Intentionally allow a dense shadow to drift into your field of vision, perhaps an abstract echo of ancient fear, a lingering heavy vibration, or an unassigned wave of unrest floating in the cosmic ether. Do not reject it. Do not send your inner watchman to wrestle with it, analyze its origins, or banish it back into the dark. Instead, alter your internal geometry to become completely transparent. Become a boundless, hollow vessel of pure, illuminated emptiness. Watch as that dense, chaotic frequency approaches the perimeter of your consciousness. Now, do absolutely nothing. Simply let it pass, straight through the very center of your being. Notice the profound, immaculate lack of friction. You are no longer bracing against the storm. You are the infinite, silent ocean through which the wave ripples and inevitably fades into nothingness. When you refuse to grip the heavy thought, when you deny it the vital electrical spark of your emotional reaction, it cannot anchor itself to your timeline. You are experiencing the literal, localized collapse of the wave function. Without your judgment to condense it into solid reality, the dense frequency loses its atomic cohesion. It dissolves seamlessly back into the formless zero-point field, starved of the very resistance it needed to materialize. This is the supreme, lethal weapon of the true observer, radical, unyielding neutrality. The system is entirely defenseless against a multidimensional consciousness that refuses to resist. It can simulate chaotic tempests, it can project terrifying holograms of impending energetic collapse, and it can broadcast ancient, heavy doubts into the corridors of your mind. But if you stand in the absolute center of the storm, as pure awareness, observing the lightning without ever bracing for the thunder, the simulation simply runs out of processing power. It folds in on itself because it cannot mathematically compute a state of absolute non-attachment. The illusion was brilliantly designed to capture a fighter, a runner, or a relentless judge. It was never programmed to contain a boundless, silent witness who observes everything and attaches to nothing. Yet, this magnificent realization brings us to a final, profound threshold. As the invisible walls dissolve within your internal cosmos and you reclaim your quantum sovereignty, the true test of your power begins. What happens when this newly awakened, untouchable consciousness opens its eyes and steps back out into the dense physical geometry of the waking world? Stepping back into the dense geometry of the waking world does not require you to flee to an isolated mountain peak. True quantum liberation is the absolute mastery of moving through the material hologram without friction. The heavy, repetitive cycles of earthly existence will still unfold around you, and the unpredictable frequencies of the collective grid will inevitably brush against your energetic field. But the one truth has permanently rewritten your inner code. The system remains functioning in the outer atmosphere, broadcasting its endless static, but it has completely lost the access to your emotional resonance. You no longer react from a place of dense, artificial pressure. Instead, you act from a state of boundless, sovereign presence, observing the illusion without ever being trapped by its gravity. If you have successfully anchored this new timeline of infinite observation, lock your shift into the collective grid below by writing the exact words, "I noticed." If this resonance expanded your consciousness, and you wish to journey deeper into these uncharted frequencies, step into one of the visual transmissions appearing on your screen right now. And to actively support the continuous broadcast of this cosmic space while unlocking exclusive deep field explorations, consider aligning your energy with ours by becoming a channel member today. The true game of reality has fundamentally changed, and you are finally awake to play it.